Get ready for a revelation that will challenge your beliefs. Have you ever considered how the ancient tale of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah could alter your perspective on life today? In a world filled with mysteries and surprises, we are about to uncover profound secrets that will test everything you thought you knew. In the story, we find Abraham peacefully resting at the entrance of his home in the heat of the day. Suddenly, he notices 3 strangers in the distance and immediately runs to greet them. Leaving his house, he bows deeply as a sign of respect and says, "My lords, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by without staying for a moment of hospitality. Let me bring some water for you to wash your feet and rest under the trees. Allow me to bring you some bread, so you can regain your strength before continuing your journey, as you have honored me with your visit." The travelers accept the offer, and Abraham quickly instructs his servants to follow his directions. Then he hurries into the house and asks Sarah, his wife, to prepare 3 measures of fine flour. Without hesitation, Abraham begins to prepare the meal. He kneads the flour and shapes the bread with skill. Then, he quickly goes to the herd and selects a tender calf, giving it to a servant to prepare. Meanwhile, he serves fresh curds, milk, and the meat he has prepared to the guests under the shade of a tree. He stands by attentively as they enjoy the meal. Soon, the visitors inquire about Sarah, Abraham's wife, and he responds that she is in the tent. One of the visitors then makes a surprising announcement. "I will return to you at the same time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah, overhearing this from the tent, quietly laughs to herself, as both she and Abraham were advanced in age, and she had passed the age of childbearing. She thought to herself, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old as well, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord then asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child, now that I am old? Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you, and Sarah shall have a son.'" Out of fear, Sarah denied laughing, but the Lord insisted, "No, but you did laugh." After this, the men set out toward Sodom, and Abraham walked with them to see them on their way. The Lord pondered whether to hide from Abraham what he was about to do, considering that Abraham would become a great nation and that all nations of the earth would be blessed through him. Abraham was chosen to command his children and household to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so the Lord could bring about what he had promised to Abraham. The Lord then revealed that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah was great, and their sin was very grievous. He decided to go down to see whether they had done according to the outcry that had come to him, and if not, he would know. The men turned and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Abraham drew near and asked, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" The Lord replied, "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake." But Abraham, continuing humbly, asked again, "Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? The Lord said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." Abraham persisted, "Suppose 40 are found there." The Lord answered, "For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Then Abraham said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there." The Lord replied, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." Abraham continued, "Suppose 20 are found there." The Lord answered, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Finally, Abraham asked, "Suppose 10 are found there." The Lord replied, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." After their discussion, the Lord went his way, and Abraham returned home. Abraham's intercession for Sodom displayed his compassion and trust in God's mercy. The heart of the story revolves around the question of divine justice. God has the power to do as he pleases, but will he act justly? God's responses to Abraham's pleas reveal his fairness and willingness to spare the city for the sake of the righteous. Interestingly, God had a dual purpose in revealing his plan. All nations would be blessed through Abraham, and thus God revealed that the city of Sodom would be destroyed before those blessings could come through him. Additionally, Abraham was tasked with teaching his descendants to live justly so that they might enjoy divine blessings. If the depravity of the people was total, they would be judged. Abraham firmly believed there were righteous people in Sodom and made an appeal based on God's justice. His intercession revealed his great character, praying for the salvation of all in the city for the sake of the righteous among them. Previously, Abraham had rescued these people in battle, and now he interceded for them with the same courage and perseverance. While some may be surprised by Abraham's negotiations with God, his prayers were offered with humility and respect. He sought justice and the salvation of Sodom, and even when proposing conditions for the number of righteous, he was not trying to persuade God to act against his will. On the other hand, Lot's plea for Zoar was different, highlighting the theme of justice for those who will benefit from God's blessings, emphasizing the importance of divine justice and mercy. These themes were as relevant to Israel as they were to Abraham, who turned them into compassionate intercession. In Genesis 19, we encounter a dramatic episode. At evening, two angels arrived in Sodom, finding Lot sitting at the city gate. When Lot saw them, he rose to greet them and bowed his face to the ground, inviting them to his house for the night. Initially, the angels declined, intending to spend the night in the square, but Lot insisted until they accepted and went to his house. Lot prepared a feast with unleavened bread, and they ate together before resting. However, the men of Sodom, young and old, surrounded Lot's house, demanding that he hand over the visitors so they could abuse them. Lot went outside to speak with them, closing the door behind him, and begged them not to commit such a wicked act. He even offered his two virgin daughters in place of the men, highlighting the depravity of Sodom and the cultural value placed on hospitality and protection. But the men, who were angels, pulled Lot back into the house, struck the men outside with blindness, and asked Lot if he had any other family members in Sodom, instructing him to get them out of the city. They explained that they were there to destroy the city because its sin was so great. Lot went to his sons-in-law, who were betrothed to his daughters, but they thought he was joking and didn't take him seriously. At dawn, the angels urged Lot to take his wife and two daughters and flee the city to avoid being swept away in its punishment. However, Lot hesitated, so the angels took his hand and the hands of his family, leading them out of the city in God's mercy. Once outside, the angels instructed them to flee to the mountains and not look back. But Lot pleaded with them, saying he could not make it to the mountains, and asked to flee to the small town of Zoar instead. The angel granted this request, and Lot and his family fled to Zoar. As they reached the town, the Lord rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, destroying the cities, the valley, and all its inhabitants. Lot's wife, looking back at Sodom, was turned into a pillar of salt as punishment for her disobedience. The next morning, Abraham looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah and saw the smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. God remembered Abraham and spared Lot from the destruction, although he eradicated the wicked cities. Afterward, Lot, fearing to stay in Zoar, moved to the mountains with his two daughters, where they lived in a cave. The daughters, believing there were no men left on earth to marry, got their father drunk and lay with him to preserve their family line. Both daughters became pregnant by Lot, and the eldest gave birth to Moab, the ancestor of the Moabites, and the youngest gave birth to Ben-Ammi, the ancestor of the Ammonites, who became enemies of Israel. This final narrative highlights the decline of Lot's family and the consequences of living in a corrupt society. Despite initially seeking refuge in Zoar, Lot ended up in the mountains, far from the advanced civilization of Sodom. The daughters' actions demonstrate the lasting influence of Sodom on their morals. The births of Moab and Ben-Ammi serve as a reminder of the sin that led to the creation of Israel's enemies. This conclusion contrasts sharply with Abraham's story, illustrating that when people compromise with sin and do not fully trust in God's protection, the consequences are severe. The message of Sodom and Gomorrah extends beyond the ancient text, challenging us to reflect on the importance of justice, mercy, and living in alignment with divine principles. The story serves as a reminder of the consequences of a society's moral decline and the importance of intercession, compassion, and trust in God's righteousness. As you contemplate this tale, consider how it relates to our world today. What lessons can we draw from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? How can we apply these ancient teachings to our lives in a modern context? The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not just an ancient tale. It's a timeless lesson in justice, mercy, and the power of intercession.